The streetlights of Garibaldi Street in a quiet suburb of Buenos Aires flickered weakly against the encroaching darkness of the Argentine night. It was May in the year 1960, and a group of men sat inside a parked vehicle, their eyes fixed on a bus stop down the road. The air was thick with tension, and the smell of stale tobacco smoke filled the small cabin of the car. These men were not locals, but operatives from a land thousands of miles away, waiting for a ghost from the past to appear. They checked their watches repeatedly, knowing that a single mistake could compromise months of planning and lead to an international diplomatic incident of massive proportions. The target they were hunting was not merely a criminal, but a living symbol of the greatest atrocity in human history. Adolf Eichmann, the logistical architect of the Holocaust, had vanished into the ratlands of South America after the Second World War. For 15 years, he had lived a quiet life under the assumed name of Ricardo Clement, working at a Mercedes-Benz factory. If these agents failed tonight, the chance to bring one of the most notorious war criminals to justice would likely disappear forever. The moral weight of 6 million voices rested on the shoulders of this small team, demanding that they succeed where others had failed. Among the agents in the car sat Peter Malkin, a man whose personal history was deeply intertwined with the tragedy Eichmann had engineered. Malkin was a master of disguise and a physically imposing figure, chosen specifically for his ability to subdue a target quickly and silently. He flexed his gloved hands, mentally rehearsing the takedown maneuver he had practiced hundreds of times. Unlike the cold bureaucrat they were hunting, Malkin was driven by a fiery passion to see justice served for his own family members who had perished in the camps. He watched the headlights of a bus approach, his heart pounding a rhythm of vengeance and duty. As the bus screeched to a halt and a balding man in a trench coat stepped off, the question hung heavily in the humid air. Would this unassuming factory worker truly be the monster they sought, or was this a catastrophic case of mistaken identity? The agents knew that kidnapping a foreign national on sovereign soil was a violation of international law that could isolate their young nation. They had to be certain, and they had to be swift. Malkin opened the car door, stepping out into the shadows to confront the man who had turned the machinery of death into an administrative task. The capture was violent but brief, a flurry of movement that ended with Eichmann bundled into the backseat of the sedan. The reveal came days later in a safe house, when the captive finally admitted his true identity to his interrogators. The immediate aftermath involved a nerve-wracking extraction, sedating Eichmann and dressing him in an El Al flight crew uniform to smuggle him past customs. When the plane finally lifted off the runway bound for Jerusalem, a collective sigh of relief echoed through the cabin. The Mossad had proven it could reach anywhere in the world to protect its interests and punish its enemies. This audacious operation brought the Mossad out of the shadows and onto the global stage, but its origins were far more humble. Established in December 1949, the agency was the brainchild of Prime Minister David Ben Gurion. He understood that the newly formed state of Israel, surrounded by hostile neighbors, required an intelligence apparatus superior to any in the region. Ben Gurion envisioned an organization that would serve as the long arm of the state, capable of gathering intelligence, conducting covert diplomacy, and executing special operations. It was to be the ultimate guarantee of survival for a nation under constant threat. In its early years, the agency was known simply as the Institute for Intelligence and Special Operations. It operated with a shoestring budget and a ragtag group of former underground fighters and Holocaust survivors. They lacked the sophisticated technology of the CIA or the vast resources of the KGB, relying instead on human intelligence and sheer audacity. The recruiters looked for individuals who possessed a rare combination of patriotism, linguistic skills, and the ability to lie convincingly under extreme pressure. These early agents built the foundation of a mythos that would eventually become legendary in the world of espionage. One of the most celebrated figures of this era was Eli Cohen, a man who would become the gold standard for deep cover operatives. Born in Egypt, Cohen was recruited to infiltrate the high command of the Syrian government. After months of intense training in tradecraft and cryptography, he assumed the identity of Kamal Amin Thabit. His backstory was carefully constructed, a wealthy Syrian businessman returning from Argentina to invest in his homeland. Cohen fully embodied this persona, moving to Damascus and renting an apartment in a district popular with military officers and diplomats, setting the stage for one of the most daring infiltrations in history. Cohen was a natural charmer, hosting lavish parties where alcohol flowed freely and loose lips revealed state secrets. He befriended high-ranking generals and government officials, eventually becoming a trusted confidant within the Syrian establishment. His access was unprecedented. He was even given a tour of classified military fortifications on the Golan Heights. In a stroke of genius, he suggested that the Syrians plant eucalyptus trees to provide shade for their soldiers in the bunkers. These trees would later serve as perfect targeting markers for Israeli artillery, a testament to the strategic brilliance of the spy in their midst. For years, Cohen transmitted vital intelligence back to headquarters using a hidden radio transmitter. However, the question of how long one man could live a double life began to loom over his mission. In January 1965, Syrian counterintelligence, aided by Soviet tracking equipment, pinpointed his signal. The reveal was tragic. Soldiers burst into his apartment while he was mid-transmission. Despite international pleas for clemency, Eli Cohen was publicly hanged in Damascus. His sacrifice provided the intelligence that proved crucial during the Six-Day War, cementing his status as a national hero. While Cohen operated in Syria, another agent named Wolfgang Lotz was making waves in Egypt. Known as the Champagne Spy, Lotz was a German-born Israeli who posed as a former Wehrmacht officer and horse breeder. His non-Jewish appearance and fluent German allowed him to infiltrate the social circles of German scientists working on the Egyptian missile program. Lotz lived a life of luxury, riding horses and drinking expensive wine with the very men developing weapons intended to destroy his country. He sent bomb threats to the scientists to intimidate them, all while gathering technical specifications on the rockets. The agency did not only deal in human spies, but also in complex logistical heists. In 1969, France imposed an arms embargo on Israel, refusing to deliver 5 missile boats that had already been paid for. The boats were docked in the port of Cherbourg, guarded by French authorities who were determined to uphold the ban. The Israeli Navy desperately needed these vessels to defend its coastline. The Mossad was tasked with an impossible mission: to steal 5 military warships from a guarded harbor in a friendly nation without causing a diplomatic rupture. On Christmas Eve, while the French port authorities were distracted by holiday festivities, Israeli crews quietly boarded the vessels. They had set up a dummy corporation in Norway to ostensibly purchase the boats for oil exploration, a ruse that confused the local bureaucracy just enough to buy time. Under the cover of a winter storm, the engines roared to life, and the boats slipped out of the harbor into the rough Atlantic waters. The Cherbourg project was a masterclass in deception, proving that the agency could manipulate international commerce and maritime law to achieve its objectives. The nature of the threat changed dramatically in the 1970s with the rise of international terrorism. The pivotal moment came during the 1972 Munich Olympics, where members of the Palestinian group Black September took Israeli athletes hostage. The world watched in horror as the event, meant to celebrate global unity, turned into a bloodbath. The German police attempted a rescue operation at the airport, but it was botched terribly. All 11 Israeli hostages were killed, along with a German police officer. The tragedy left a deep scar on the national psyche and demanded a response. Prime Minister Golda Meir, known for her iron will, made a secret decision that would change the rules of engagement forever. She authorized Operation Wrath of God, a covert campaign to assassinate the individuals responsible for planning the Munich massacre. This was not about revenge, she argued, but about deterrence. A message had to be sent that spilling Jewish blood would carry a heavy price, no matter where the perpetrators hid. A secret unit within the Mossad, known as Caesarea, was tasked with tracking down and eliminating the targets across Europe and the Middle East. The commander chosen to lead these hit squads was Mike Harari, a veteran operative with a reputation for precision and professionalism. Harari assembled teams of agents who operated under deep cover, moving between European capitals with fake passports. They used a variety of methods to eliminate their targets, from explosive devices hidden in telephones to direct shootings on city streets. The operation was morally complex and legally ambiguous, blurring the lines between justice and extrajudicial killing. It turned the streets of Paris, Rome, and Nicosia into a silent battlefield. One of the most daring missions during this campaign was Operation Spring of Youth in 1973. Intelligence indicated that 3 senior PLO leaders were living in apartments in the heart of Beirut, Lebanon. The Mossad partnered with the Sayeret Matkal Special Forces for a raid deep into enemy territory. Among the commandos was a future Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, who disguised himself as a woman with a brunette wig and makeup. The team landed on the beach at night, drove into the city, and eliminated the targets in their own homes before escaping back to the sea. However, the hunt for the Munich planners also led to one of the agency's greatest failures. In 1973, in the small Norwegian town of Lillehammer, agents believed they had located Ali Hassan Salameh, the mastermind behind Black September. They gunned down a man walking home from a movie theater with his pregnant wife. The reveal was devastating. The victim was Ahmed Bouchiki, an innocent Moroccan waiter who merely resembled the target. The agents were captured by Norwegian police, leading to a humiliating trial that exposed the secret network and forced a temporary suspension of operations. The focus shifted from assassination back to rescue in 1976, when an Air France flight carrying nearly 250 passengers was hijacked. The terrorists diverted the plane to Entebbe airport in Uganda, where they were welcomed by the dictator Idi Amin. The Jewish and Israeli passengers were separated from the others and held hostage in the old terminal building. The situation seemed hopeless, with the hostages thousands of miles away in a hostile country. The government faced an agonizing choice: negotiate with terrorists or launch a suicidal rescue mission. The planning for Operation Thunderbolt was frantic and relied heavily on Mossad intelligence. Agents interviewed released non-Israeli hostages to map the terminal and determine the number of guards. They even located the engineer who had built the terminal years prior to get the blueprints. A fleet of Hercules transport planes flew low over the Red Sea to avoid radar, carrying elite commandos and a black Mercedes designed to look like Idi Amin's personal car. The element of surprise was their only advantage in a mission that many military experts considered impossible. The raid on Entebbe is now the stuff of legend. The commandos stormed the terminal, eliminating the terrorists and rescuing 102 hostages. The operation lasted only 90 minutes but left a profound legacy. The commander of the assault unit, Yonatan Netanyahu, was the only Israeli soldier killed during the raid. His death added a tragic note to a miraculous success. The operation demonstrated a capability for long-range power projection that stunned the world and served as a warning to any regime that harbored hijackers. As the 1980s dawned, a new existential threat emerged in the form of Saddam Hussein's nuclear ambitions. Iraq was constructing a nuclear reactor named Osirak with French assistance. The Mossad launched a campaign of sabotage and intimidation to delay the project. Agents bombed reactor cores while they were still in a warehouse in France and assassinated key nuclear scientists in hotel rooms. Despite these efforts, the reactor construction continued, pushing the Israeli government toward a military solution. The agency's role shifted to providing precise coordinates and intelligence on the reactor's defenses. In June 1981, Israeli F-16 fighter jets bombed the Osirak reactor in Operation Opera, destroying it completely. The intelligence provided by the Mossad was so precise that the pilots knew exactly where to drop their munitions to breach the containment dome. The strike drew international condemnation, even from the United States, but it effectively ended Iraq's immediate nuclear program. This operation established the Begin Doctrine, which stated that Israel would never allow an enemy state in the Middle East to acquire weapons of mass destruction. Not all operations involved violence, some were strictly humanitarian. In the early 1980s, thousands of Ethiopian Jews fled famine and persecution, walking across the desert to refugee camps in Sudan. The Mossad was tasked with smuggling these people, known as Beta Israel, to the Jewish state. The challenge was immense. Sudan was an enemy Arab League nation. Agents needed a cover story that would allow them to operate on the Red Sea coast and move large groups of people without arousing suspicion from the Sudanese military. The solution was ingenious. The Mossad leased an abandoned diving resort called the Aruz Holiday Village. Agents posed as European diving instructors and hotel managers, actually running the resort for real tourists during the day. At night, they would sneak out to rendezvous points in the desert, load refugees onto trucks, and transport them to waiting Navy SEALs on the beach. This operation, known as Operation Moses, saved thousands of lives. It remains a unique chapter in espionage history, where spies ran a profitable vacation spot as a front for a rescue mission. The agency's reach extended to internal security breaches as well. In 1986, a former nuclear technician named Mordechai Vanunu sold secrets about Israel's nuclear program to a British newspaper. He fled to London, where he was protected by the laws of the United Kingdom. The Mossad could not simply kidnap him from British soil without causing a major incident. Instead, they used a classic honey trap. An agent using the name Cindy struck up a conversation with Vanunu in Leicester Square, charming him and suggesting they travel to Rome for a romantic getaway. Vanunu, lonely and unsuspecting, agreed to the trip. The moment they arrived in Rome, the trap snapped shut. Mossad agents overpowered him in the apartment, drugged him, and smuggled him back to Israel on a cargo ship. He was tried and imprisoned for 18 years. The operation showcased the agency's patience and psychological manipulation. It also reinforced the strict policy of ambiguity regarding nuclear capabilities, as Vanunu's revelations were never officially confirmed or denied by the state, maintaining the strategic silence. The 1990s brought new challenges and embarrassing failures. In 1997, agents were sent to Jordan to assassinate Khalid Mashal, a leader of Hamas. The plan was to spray a lethal, slow-acting poison into his ear on a street in Amman. The agents botched the escape and were captured by Jordanian authorities. King Hussein of Jordan was furious and threatened to sever the peace treaty with Israel if Mashal died. The stakes suddenly shifted from a tactical elimination to a strategic diplomatic disaster. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was forced to send the antidote to Jordan to save Mashal's life. The Mossad also had to release the spiritual leader of Hamas, Sheikh Yassin, from prison as part of the deal to secure the release of their agents. It was a public humiliation that exposed the risks of high-profile assassinations in friendly territory. The head of the Mossad resigned, and the agency underwent a period of soul-searching and restructuring. The incident proved that even the most elite agencies are prone to human error and political miscalculation. In the 21st century, the agency adapted to the digital age, but traditional tradecraft remained vital. In 2010, a senior Hamas arms dealer named Mahmoud al-Mabhouh was found dead in a hotel room in Dubai. At first, it appeared to be natural causes. However, the Dubai police began to piece together hours of CCTV footage. The reveal was a cinematic montage of agents in tennis gear and wigs, tracking the target through the lobby and elevators. The operation was technically successful, but the loss of anonymity was total. The Dubai operation highlighted the difficulty of maintaining cover in a world of ubiquitous surveillance. The agents had used forged passports from Western nations, causing diplomatic rows with the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Australia. Facial recognition technology and digital tracking made the old style of disguise increasingly obsolete. The Mossad had to evolve, moving towards cyber warfare and operations that left no physical footprint. The shadow war was moving from the streets to the servers, but the objective remained the same. The primary focus of this new era became the Iranian nuclear program. In a joint operation with the United States believed to be called Olympic Games, a computer worm known as Stuxnet was unleashed. This malicious code specifically targeted the centrifuges at the Natanz enrichment facility, causing them to spin out of control and destroy themselves. It was the first known cyber weapon to cause physical destruction in the real world. This marked a paradigm shift in espionage, proving that code could be as destructive as a bomb. Alongside the cyber attacks, a series of mysterious deaths plagued the Iranian scientific community. Nuclear scientists were killed by magnetic bombs attached to their cars by passing motorcyclists in Tehran. These attacks required precise intelligence and assets on the ground within a police state. While Israel never claimed responsibility, the methodology bore the signature of the Mossad's targeted elimination tactics. The goal was to create fear and brain drain within the Iranian program, slowing down progress through attrition and psychological warfare. One of the most spectacular recent achievements occurred in 2018. Agents infiltrated a secret warehouse in Tehran and stole a vast archive of documents detailing Iran's past nuclear weapons work. They extracted half a ton of physical files and compact discs, smuggling them out of the country before the guards realized what had happened. Prime Minister Netanyahu presented the files on live television, using them to convince the United States to withdraw from the nuclear deal. It was a heist that combined old-school burglary with high-level geopolitical strategy. From the capture of Eichmann to the theft of the nuclear archive, the Mossad has cultivated a reputation that is part reality and part myth. Its motto, often misquoted, is actually from Proverbs: "Where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety." The agency views itself as the ultimate counselor and protector of the nation. However, the moral cost of its operations remains a subject of intense debate. The use of assassination, kidnapping, and sabotage raises difficult questions about the limits of state power. The agents who carry out these missions often live with the psychological toll of their double lives. They are celebrated as heroes in the shadows, but must remain anonymous to the world. The stress of constant deception, the fear of capture, and the burden of taking lives leave deep scars. Yet the agency has no shortage of volunteers. For many, the memory of the Holocaust and the constant threats facing their country provide a powerful motivation that overrides the personal risks involved. As technology advances, the future of espionage will undoubtedly change. Artificial intelligence, biometrics, and cyber surveillance will make traditional human intelligence harder to gather. Yet the human element remains irreplaceable. A computer cannot look a target in the eye and determine if they are lying, nor can it recruit a source through empathy and trust. The Mossad will likely continue to blend cutting-edge technology with the ancient art of deception. In the end, the story of the Mossad is a reflection of the history of Israel itself, a struggle for survival in a hostile environment marked by ingenuity, ruthlessness, and a refusal to accept defeat. The operations we have explored are just the ones that have come to light. The vast majority remain classified, buried in the archives of Tel Aviv. As long as there are threats in the darkness, there will be those who wait in the shadows, ready to strike, ensuring that the whisper of time does not become a silence.